Unless you're using your gifts with genuine Spirit power under the influence of the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit, it is just like paganism. You're no better than a pagan. Wow, that's pretty strong language. You're using your gift, but if you're not doing it in love, you're just like the pagans. It is noise, it is babble, it is meaningless. So, there are two things here to say. Stay away from counterfeit gifts, obviously, but even in the exercise of the true gifts, they require love. Secondly, prophecy without love is nothing. Verse 2, if I have the gift of prophecy, know all mysteries, all knowledge, have all faith, so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I'm nothing. Let's just take the first one, if I have the gift of prophecy. This is the greatest gift. The greatest gift. Verse 1, chapter 14, pursue love, yet desire earnestly spiritual gifts, but especially that you may prophesy. Prophesy. You want to speak. That's what prophesy means, to speak. The one who prophesies, verse 3, speaks to men for edification and exhortation and consolation. There's the best definition of prophecy in the Bible. Right there, verse 3, the one who prophesies speaks to men for edification, exhortation, and consolation or comfort. This is the supreme gift because it's understood. That's why he says in verse 2, if you're talking in a language, only God knows what you're saying. You're speaking mysteries to everybody else. In verse 23, he says, if the whole church assembles together and you all speak in languages, and ungifted men and unbelievers come, they're going to say you're crazy, you're mad. But if all preach, speak that which is edifying, exhortative, and comforting, an unbeliever, an ungifted man enters, he's convicted by all, he's called to account by all, and the secrets of his heart are disclosed, and he'll fall on his face and worship God, declaring that God is certainly among you. He's saying, speak clearly. Seek to speak the truth clearly. But though you have the gift of prophecy, if you do not have love, you're nothing. And Paul puts it again in the first person. I am nothing. Preachers with no love are many, and they are all nothing. Nothing. To exercise the gift of preaching, proclamation of the truth apart from love for God, love for His people, and to do it for self-glory and fame and personal achievement and success and pride is to wind up being a nothing. A nothing. And he says in verse 2, knowledge without love is nothing. Even though you understand or come to know all mysteries and all knowledge. Now you can see the hyperbole, right? That couldn't apply to anybody, could it? Nobody has understood all mysteries. No one has all knowledge. And here we see the hyperbole. If I spoke it all, and I proclaimed like no one else could, and I knew everything there was to know, if I had millions of facts and could correlate them all, and had not love, I'm what? Zero. And then fourthly, faith without love is nothing. Verse 2 again, if I have all faith, if I have so much faith that I could remove mountains. Remember Jesus in Matthew 17:20 and Matthew 21:21 talked about if you had the faith of the grain of mustard seed, you could move a mountain, say to this mountain, be removed. And again, that's an analogy. Jesus is saying it would be amazing to see what you could do if you put your faith to work. That's what we're having you do with the faith promise, isn't it? Put your faith to work. Let's move some mountains. This is prayer that releases the power of God. Believing prayer. Faith that allows God to do the impossible. And again, it's a hyperbole. If I have all faith, well look, we have faith, but none of us would stand up and say, I'm here to tell you my faith is superlative. My faith is comprehensive. I have ultimate faith. I have all faith. I lack nothing. No. Nobody would be foolish enough. We all say with the man, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. If I had all faith, faith to the max, faith to the limit, and by means of that faith could tap into divine power and do all things, and I didn't have love, I would be a big zero. Prophecy, knowledge, power, without love adds up to a blank, an absolute blank. Well, Paul's not finished with us yet. Verse 3. Benevolence without love is nothing. Benevolence without love is nothing. And if I give all my possessions to feed the poor, and if I surrender my body to be burned, but do not have love, it profits me nothing. That's an interesting phrase. Give all my possessions to feed the poor. The phrase feed the poor. Very interesting. The verb here to feed is somidzo. And it's connected to someon, which means a little bite. This is so interesting. So what it's describing here is the ultimate acts of benevolence. This is not if I send my check to the Children's Hunger Fund. That's not that. If I give my money to the charity that feeds the kids. If I give all my possessions to feed people one bite at a time. That's what it's talking about. This is not talking about somebody who supports the people who do that. He's speaking of someone who gives away all his earthly possessions, takes all that money, and buys food and feeds people one bite at a time. That is the ultimate beneficent heart, isn't it? Who does that? We're much more content to send money to somebody else. This is the idea in the language that every single granting of the gift is done by the person himself. This would be tantamount to taking your entire fortune and turning it into $5 bills and passing